Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. These words by Carl Jung are not just poetic, they are a warning about the quiet power that our unconscious mind holds over the course of our lives. But what if I told you that part of this unconscious realm isn't just a collection of forgotten memories or hidden impulses, but a child? A younger version of you, small, scared, unheard. A child who once felt abandoned, rejected, or unworthy, and never truly healed. He didn't grow up with the rest of you. He stayed behind, waiting. And whether you realize it or not, he's still influencing your relationships, your fears, your self-worth. Today, we're not just talking psychology, we're beginning a personal excavation. This is a journey into the shadow, into the places we've buried what we were never allowed to feel. We'll explore who this inner child is, how and when the wound was formed, and why it keeps resurfacing no matter how hard you try to outgrow it. Because you can't outgrow what you haven't faced, and the wound that never healed doesn't just stay quiet. It speaks through your triggers, your insecurities, your need to prove or to please. So if you've ever wondered why some patterns in your life keep repeating, why a part of you still longs for something you can't quite name, then this journey is for you. It's not about blaming the past, but about reclaiming what was lost in it. Let's begin. When we speak of the inner child, we're not referring to some abstract metaphor or nostalgic memory. It's much deeper than that. The inner child is the emotional imprint of your earliest years, a living psychological presence tucked away in the subconscious. He is the part of you that felt things before you had the words to express them. That child still exists, not in age, but in emotion. He carries every unhealed wound, every moment of neglect, fear, or unmet need. According to Carl Jung, this child resides in the unconscious and quietly shapes how we react, especially in moments when logic seems to disappear. It's in the sting of rejection that feels far too sharp for the situation. It's in the panic that rises during conflict, the tears that come too quickly, the overreaction to a simple word or tone. When you feel yourself unravel emotionally over something seemingly small, it's rarely the adult in you who's reacting, it's the child. The one who never felt seen, the one who had to suppress himself to survive. You may have grown up, adapted, become strong on the outside, but inside, he never had that chance. He's still waiting for someone to listen, to hold him, to say, "I see you. You matter." And because he wasn't heard then, he now speaks in the only language he knows, through your emotional patterns, your triggers, your sensitivities. He may show up when your partner criticizes you, or when you're overlooked at work, or when you're trying so hard to be perfect just to feel worthy. The inner child is not your weakness, he is your unfinished story. And like any story left open, he will keep repeating the same lines, until someone, you, finally comes back to finish the chapter. Jung believed that this child, hidden in the shadow of the unconscious, is not just a symbol of pain, but also of potential. He is the key to your creativity, your playfulness, your authenticity, but only if you're willing to face what hurt him in the first place. Recognizing your inner child isn't self-indulgent or regressive. It's one of the most courageous steps you can take toward true emotional maturity. Because healing doesn't start when you become stronger. It starts when you become honest with the parts of yourself you've ignored the longest. The wound doesn't announce itself when it happens. It isn't always a loud event or a single moment of trauma. Sometimes, it's the quiet absence of what should have been there. The warmth that never came. The safety that never arrived. The simple validation of being told, it's okay to feel what you feel. For many, the wound begins in the earliest years, when a child first encounters rejection, emotional neglect, harsh criticism, or a cold silence that felt like abandonment. But what makes the wound so powerful isn't just the pain itself. It's the lack of space to understand it. When a child experiences pain in an environment that neither explains nor contains his emotions, he does what all children must to survive. He adapts. He silences what he feels. he begins to internalize the idea that certain emotions are not safe to express, that love is conditional, that being himself may not be enough. And so the child, unknowingly, begins to construct a mask, what Jung called the persona. This is the version of you that is shaped for approval, acceptance, and performance. It's who you learn to become in order to be good, successful, lovable. You learned to smile when you were hurting, to achieve when you were anxious, to stay quiet when something inside you was screaming. You put on the right face for the world while burying the parts of you that didn't seem welcome. But the wound? It never left. Because what is not acknowledged cannot be healed. Instead, it was pushed into the shadows, into the unconscious, where it waits. And it doesn't stay silent forever. It returns in ways you don't expect. In your fear of intimacy, your perfectionism, your deep discomfort with failure, or that aching loneliness even in a crowded room. It returns through people who trigger old emotions, repeating cycles in love and work that leave you wondering, why does this keep happening to me? The truth is, it's not happening to you. It's happening through you. Through the child inside who never got the tools to process his pain. And so he keeps acting it out in the only way he knows how, by recreating familiar wounds until you're finally ready to look at them. And perhaps the most tragic part is this. The world often praises the mask. It rewards the hard worker, the overachiever, the emotionally stoic man who has it all together. But deep inside, that man might be exhausted from holding it all in. The wound doesn't heal because the adult self never stops long enough to ask, where did I learn to hide? Who told me that my feelings weren't welcome? When did I stop being me in order to be accepted? Healing begins not by becoming someone better, but by remembering who you had to stop being in order to survive. By turning inward, gently, and saying to that child, you deserved more. You still do. That's where the work begins. Not in fixing yourself, but in reclaiming yourself. The wound of the inner child rarely announces itself clearly. It doesn't say, hey, remember me? I'm the pain you buried years ago. No, it whispers, in patterns, in choices, in feelings that don't quite make sense, but feel overwhelmingly real. You see it in your relationships first. Maybe you find yourself drawn again and again to people who mirror the very pain you once tried to escape. They feel familiar, not in a safe way, but in a known way. You chase love that is unpredictable, withholding, or critical because some part of you is still trying to earn the love you never fully received. You give too much, too quickly, or you pull away before anyone can leave you. The wound shows up in your fear of abandonment, not just in romantic relationships, but even with friends, co-workers, or strangers. A simple delay in a message feels like rejection. A small conflict feels like betrayal. You overthink, replay, analyze, not because you're weak, but because a younger part of you still believes love can disappear at any moment. Then, there are the behaviors, those quiet coping strategies that sneak into your life. You become addicted to achievement, to being perfect, to staying in control. Or maybe you swing to the other side. You isolate, procrastinate, numb out, or retreat from the world altogether. Both are strategies. Both are armor. Because when the inner child is still in pain, the adult either tries to prove he is worthy or tries to avoid ever being hurt again. Carl Jung observed this dynamic with haunting precision when he said, "What is not healed within is repeated outside." It's not just a metaphor, it's a lived reality. The boss who makes you feel small, the partner who never sees your worth, the friend who pulls away when you need them most. These aren't just unlucky coincidences, they're psychological reenactments. Your unconscious mind recreates the emotional blueprint of your early life, hoping this time it will end differently. Hoping that maybe this person will finally love you the way you needed. That this job will finally give you the approval you never got. That this success will finally silence the voice inside that says, you're not enough. But it never works. Because the real healing was never meant to come from the outside. Even when everything in your life looks good, a stable job, a relationship, friends, hobbies, there's still that lingering emptiness. A quiet ache that says something's missing. That something is not a thing. It's a connection. A reconnection with the part of you that was left behind. The child who once felt invisible. The boy who was told to man up, to stop crying, to be strong before he ever learned what strength really meant. You might feel him when you stand in front of a mirror and don't recognize the person looking back, or in those quiet nights where you feel unexplainably sad, even though nothing is wrong. He's there in your triggers, your defensiveness, your overreactions. He shows up when someone raises their voice, and your body tenses before your mind understands why. He shows up when you panic after being misunderstood, because once, being misunderstood meant being unloved. These aren't flaws in your personality. They're echoes of a wound that was never acknowledged, never comforted, never soothed. And here's the hardest part. The world won't always see this. Most people see your surface, the way you function, achieve, perform. But you feel it in the ways you overextend yourself, overthink your worth, overgive to people who don't deserve it, just to feel safe. And none of it is your fault. You did what you had to do to survive, but now, maybe it's time to do more than survive. Maybe it's time to remember, because the wound that never healed isn't a curse, it's a call to return to yourself, not the mask, not the polished image, but the part of you that once felt deeply and loved freely, before the world taught him to be afraid. That child is not your weakness, he's your truth, and he's still waiting. Healing begins with acknowledgement. Not a vague idea of something went wrong, but a courageous willingness to turn inward and ask, when did I first feel this wound? What moment made me believe I was not enough, not safe, not truly loved? Often the answer doesn't come immediately. The unconscious doesn't speak in clear sentences. It speaks in patterns, in symbols, in repetition. This is why Carl Jung emphasized the importance of becoming intimate with the contents of our own shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves that long for light. To begin healing, you must start by recognizing that the inner child is still alive, not metaphorically, but psychologically. He exists in your emotional responses, in your fears, your habits, and your needs. So start by speaking to him. Literally, write him a letter. Tell him you see him now, that you're sorry he felt abandoned, that you're here and you won't leave. This might sound strange at first, even silly, but it's not. This is reparenting, becoming the adult you needed when you were a child. The child in you doesn't need perfection. He needs presence. He needs you to pause and say, I know you're scared, but I'm not going to abandon you like they did. And presence isn't always loud. It can be as simple as sitting quietly with a journal and asking, what are you trying to tell me? Let your hand write without thinking, stream of consciousness style. This is one of Jung's most powerful tools, active imagination, a form of conscious dialogue with your unconscious, where you allow images, emotions, and intuitions to surface and guide you. This isn't fantasy, it's therapy, a sacred space where the inner child can finally speak, not be silenced. Dreams are also powerful messengers. Jung believed that dreams are the language of the soul, the unconscious mind's attempt to restore balance and meaning. When you begin to pay attention to recurring dream symbols, you'll often notice a small figure, a lost child, a wounded creature. They're all parts of you calling for your attention. Jung would say, The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. Through that door walks the inner child, quietly, hesitantly, but hopefully. But insight alone is not enough. The healing must also be embodied. That means learning to sit with emotions without shame. To feel grief for the childhood you didn't get, without rushing to justify it. To validate your pain without comparing it to others. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is maturity. It is finally understanding that the child who lived through those moments didn't have the tools to defend himself, but you do now. You have the capacity to listen without judgment, to soothe without suppressing, to protect without avoiding. And that protection might mean setting boundaries with people who still treat you like you're small. It might mean leaving environments that mirror your old wounds. It might even mean changing the way you speak to yourself. No more cruelty disguised as tough love. Sometimes, this work is too heavy to carry alone. That's not a failure. That's wisdom. Reaching out to a skilled guide, a therapist trained in Jungian analysis or inner child work, can be one of the most healing decisions you ever make. These professionals can help you access the unconscious through tools like dream work, sand play, art therapy, and of course, active imagination. Jung's methods don't just treat symptoms, they reveal meaning. They don't ask, "What's wrong with you?" They ask, "What happened to you? And what is your soul trying to become?" Healing your inner child is not about blaming the past. It's about freeing the future. It's about no longer letting an old wound dictate how you love, how you trust, how you live. It's not a one-time fix, it's a relationship, a lifelong commitment to show up for yourself, especially when you're triggered, anxious, or ashamed. It means saying, "I will not abandon myself ever again." And slowly, you'll notice the world shifting. Not because it changed, but because you did. Because the child inside you is no longer hiding. He is seen, held, and finally, safe. And now, we've reached the end of this journey, but perhaps it's only the beginning of another. An inward path back to a part of you long forgotten. The child within you never asked to be wounded. He never chose the silence, the abandonment, the confusion. Yet he bore it all, quietly, patiently, hoping that one day someone would come back for him. And maybe that someone is you. Maybe today is the day you stop running from the ache and begin to sit with it. Not to fix it instantly, but to honor it. To say, "I see you now. I feel your pain, and I'm here to stay." Healing the inner child is not some spiritual luxury or poetic metaphor. It is a real necessary act of self-reclamation. Because as long as that child goes unseen, unloved, unheard, you remain fragmented, living a life that never truly feels like yours. Jung reminded us that integration is the path to wholeness, and that wholeness begins with radical self-acceptance, not just of your strengths and light, but also of your fear, shame, and hidden wounds. So take that first step. Write the letter. Sit in stillness. Listen. The journey back to your inner child is the journey back to your most authentic self. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. And yet, it is in that terrifying honesty that true peace begins.